Imagine holding a moment in your hands just seconds after it happened. No phone, no filter, no waiting, just a small machine clicking, and a white card sliding out. At first nothing, then slowly, right before your eyes, an image begins to appear. A face, a smile, a moment, frozen forever. That was Polaroid. And for decades, it wasn't just a camera. It was a miracle. But like every miracle, this one eventually came to an end. Or so it seemed. Because Polaroid's story isn't just the rise and fall of a company. It's the story of why humanity sometimes refuses to let go of the things it loves most. Today, I'm going to tell you this story, from beginning to end, and by the time we're done, you might just learn something you never expected. 1943. World War II is raging at full force. The world is on fire. But on the east coast of America, in the sunny deserts of New Mexico, a father and his little daughter are on vacation. The father's name is Edwin Herbert Land. He's 34 years old, a brilliant inventor. He had already invented polarized glass for sunglasses and worked on advanced optical systems for the military. But that day, work was the last thing on his mind. He just wanted to spend time with his little girl. He took a photograph. His daughter looked up and asked, "Daddy, why can't I see the photo now?" A simple question, a childlike curiosity. But when Edwin Land heard those words, something sparked inside his mind. Why, really? Why did we have to wait days after taking a photograph? Dark rooms, chemicals, long and complicated processes. Were all of these truly necessary? After returning from that vacation, Land locked himself in his laboratory. For an entire year, he barely slept. He worked alongside chemists and engineers. He ran hundreds of experiments, failed countless times, and started over again. And in 1944, just 1 year later, he discovered the fundamental principle of instant photography. But that was only the beginning. Finding the principle was one thing. Turning it into a real product was something else entirely. 4 more years passed. In November of 1948, at the Jordan Marsh department store in Boston, the first Polaroid camera, the Model 95, went on sale. It was priced at $89.75. At the time, that was close to a full week's salary for the average American. And yet, the first batch of 57 cameras sold out that same day. People had lined up outside the store. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. A camera that produced a real photograph in under a minute. People could not believe their eyes. One journalist wrote that day, "It's as if there's a tiny dark room inside the camera, and it does all the work for you." Edwin Land's daughter had asked a simple question, and that question had changed history forever. The 1950s and 60s were years of explosive growth for Polaroid. The company released new models every year, each one faster, cheaper, and easier to use than the last. But the real revolution came in 1972. That year, Polaroid introduced the SX70. And this was not just a camera. This was a masterpiece. The SX70 was foldable, elegant, and wrapped in genuine leather. You pressed the button, and the film automatically ejected. No darkroom, no chemicals, no waiting in the traditional sense. You simply watched, and within minutes a perfect photograph appeared in the palm of your hand. For the launch of the SX70, Polaroid launched a marketing campaign unlike anything the world had seen before. Famous photographer Marie Cosindus, artist Lucas Samaras, and one of the most iconic names of the era, Andy Warhol, all began working with this camera. Warhol fell completely in love with Polaroid. He carried his SX70 everywhere he went. He photographed celebrities, friends, and strangers on the street. "Polaroid photos are real," he once said. "Not digital, not edited, just real." During this era, Polaroid became more than a tool. It became a cultural symbol. At every party in the 1970s, there was a Polaroid. In every family album, those iconic white-bordered squares told the stories of lives lived. Children lined up to have their picture taken because they could see the result immediately. The company grew right alongside its legend. By 1978, Polaroid employed over 21,000 people worldwide. Annual revenue had reached $1.4 billion. Edwin Land was on the cover of Fortune magazine. Time magazine called him the last great representative of the American inventor. Everything was perfect. Polaroid seemed untouchable. But history has taught us time and time again. Everything that reaches its highest point must eventually look down. In the late 1970s, a quiet but powerful rival arrived from Japan, Fujifilm. Fuji studied Polaroid's film patents carefully, developed their own versions, and brought them to market at significantly lower prices. At first, Polaroid didn't take this seriously. We are the original, they thought. Customers will always choose us. They were wrong. Fuji's films were cheaper. The quality was good enough. And people noticed. Slowly but steadily, Polaroid's market share began to shrink. Polaroid responded by filing patent lawsuits against Fuji. Long, exhausting, and enormously expensive legal battles. In 1986, they succeeded in banning Fuji's instant cameras from the American market. It felt like a great victory. But that victory came at a hidden cost. While Polaroid was fighting the battle they could see, they were completely blind to the one they couldn't. Because the real enemy wasn't coming from Japan. It was growing from within. 1986. Inside Polaroid's research and development laboratories, a team of young engineers is working with barely contained excitement. After months of relentless effort, they have created something extraordinary. One of the world's first digital camera prototypes. No film, no chemicals, just electronic sensors and a memory card. You take a photo, you see it on a screen, and you can store as many as you like. When the engineers brought this prototype to management, their eyes were shining. This is the technology of the future, they said. If we develop this now, we can lead the entire industry. Management's response was short and final. We are a film company. We make our money from film. Digital will destroy us. And the project we shelved. This decision would go down in history as one of the most expensive mistakes ever made. By the mid-1990s, digital cameras began entering the consumer market. At first they were expensive, then they became affordable, then they were everywhere. Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, everyone was going digital. Polaroid was still selling film. In 1996, the company made one last attempt. They launched the Polaroid Photomax, a system that could instantly print digital photographs. But it was a half measure. It offered neither the convenience of digital nor the nostalgia of analog. It was a product stuck between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. Sales collapsed. In 1997, the company underwent major restructuring. Thousands of employees were let go. Factories were closed. Debts were mounting. And then came 2001. October 11th, 2001. Polaroid Corporation filed for bankruptcy. If you look at the news from that day, most newspapers buried it as a minor business story. The country was still reeling from the September 11th attacks just weeks before. But for the world of photography, this news felt like a knife to the heart. The company was restructured, its debts were cleared, and it returned to operation in 2002. But it was no longer the Polaroid the world had known. The soul was gone. Edwin Land had already passed away in 1991. The company had lost its founder, its visionary, its spirit. In 2004, the brand was sold again. In 2005, again. With each sale, it lost a little more of itself. Executives came and went. Strategies changed. Nothing worked. And then, in 2008, the worst news arrived for Polaroid fans around the world. Instant film production was being permanently discontinued. The factories were shutting down. The machines were dismantled. The chemical formulas were locked away in archives. 60 years of legacy was officially coming to an end. The reaction from the public was unexpectedly powerful. Thousands of people mourned on social media. Photography forums flooded with the question, "How do I store my last packs of film?" Some people bought dozens of packs to last them years and place them in their freezers. Quite literally. It was rare to see such an emotional response to the death of a technology product. Because Polaroid was never just a camera. It was part of memories, of loves, of childhoods, of moments that could never be recovered, and now it was gone. But some people refused to give up. In a small town in the Netherlands, in the city of Enschede, Polaroid's last film factory still stood. The machines were still there. The chemicals still sat in the corners of old shelves. And the people who had worked in that factory for years, engineers, chemists, technicians, were still alive. One of them was an Austrian entrepreneur named Florian Kaps. Kaps was deeply passionate about instant photography. When he learned that Polaroid film production was being shut down, something inside him refused to accept it. "This cannot end this way," he told himself. Kaps partnered with Andre Bosman, a former Polaroid employee. These two unlikely visionaries sat down with Polaroid management just weeks before the factory was set to close. They wanted to buy the factory and the machines. Management stared at them in disbelief. "What are you going to do with it?" "We're going to produce Polaroid film again." Silence. "That's impossible," they said. "The formula is incredibly complex. The chemicals are no longer manufactured. Most of the experts have retired." "We know," said Kaps. "That's exactly why we called ourselves the Impossible Project." And the deal was made. The next 2 years were among the most grueling engineering and chemistry challenges in recent memory. Most of the chemicals used in the original Polaroid formula were no longer being produced. They had been banned under modern environmental regulations. Finding new chemicals, mixing them in the right proportions, recreating the film layers from scratch. Every single step brought a new obstacle. They failed repeatedly. Films produced no image at all, or the images came out faded, blurry, and unusable. The team fell into despair many times, but they kept going. And in 2010, after 2 years of relentless struggle, the Impossible Project released its first film. It wasn't perfect. It was different from the original Polaroid. It was more sensitive to light, colors sometimes came out unusual, and the price was high. But it existed. Instant film was back, and people went absolutely wild. Orders sold out within days. Bloggers, photographers, and artists tested the new film and shared their results everywhere. "Imperfect but beautiful," they wrote. "That's exactly why we love it." In a world suffocated by digital perfection, Polaroid's imperfections were no longer a flaw. They were the entire point. In 2017, the Impossible Project acquired the Polaroid brand entirely and renamed the company Polaroid Originals. It later returned simply to the name Polaroid. Today, Polaroid produces new cameras, it develops new films, and something remarkable is happening. Its customers are getting younger. Young people born in the 80s and 90s, many of whom never used a Polaroid in their lives, are falling in love with these cameras. On Instagram, the hashtag Polaroid has reached hundreds of millions of photographs. Taylor Swift shoots with Polaroid. BTS members share Polaroid photos with their fans. Why? Because in an age where every photo is perfect, Every moment is filtered, and every image is edited and re-edited endlessly. Taking one instant, uncorrectable, physical photograph feels revolutionary. A Polaroid photo cannot be deleted. It cannot be cropped. No filter can be added. It simply exists, just like the moment itself. And perhaps that is why, in this age where everything is digital, an analog camera is still alive. Polaroid's story teaches us a few powerful things. First, the greatest threat doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. Fuji didn't kill Polaroid. Digital cameras didn't kill Polaroid. Polaroid killed itself by refusing to change. Second, some things don't die. They simply sleep, and the right people at the right moment can wake them up again. Third, people don't always want perfection. Sometimes they want something real, something imperfect, something they can hold in their hands, put in their wallet, stick on their refrigerator. A moment they can actually touch. Edwin Lansdaughter once asked her father, "Daddy, why can't I see the photo now?" That question gave birth to a company. That company fell. And then, because people never stopped asking that same question, it was born again. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe. Every week we bring back the forgotten giants of history, the fallen empires, the lost brands, and the stories